Good afternoon. It's nice to see that at least some of you are back from yesterday and a few new faces also. We ended the meeting yesterday with me asking, maybe you remember what I asked, if we have a choice. Are we guilty? When the wrong effect comes out of us, are we guilty? Does anyone know?
If we don't have a choice, then
No? So some say yes, some say no.
I'd say yes, because we may not realise that we haven't got the truth, but we're still sinning, and it's up to us to see God as our source in order to realise that sin.
So that's responsibility. Yeah. But is responsibility and guilt the same thing? Let's just have a look. So the meeting for today is called The Inescapable Problem of Humanity. And we know from the presentations the other days, or yesterday, that the human being believes himself to be independent from conception. He believes that he's God. Now, this blindness or this deception gives him a lack of orientation. He has no idea how to find out what is right and what is wrong because he has no source to get the information from. This means that he has no fixed point of orientation. Everything is changeable. And so he orients himself after himself. He has no knowledge of his own being or the laws that govern nature. And he has no way to know how or what is truth and what is falsehood. This deception of independence is the root of all evil. It's the root of all fights, of all wars, of all disease, anger, depression, fear, anxiety, confusion, insecurity, doubting, ignorance, loneliness, conflict, divorce, fight between the genders, domestic violence, abuse of any kind, murder, suicide, war, compulsion, backbiting, conditioning, blackmailing, and all addictions and all disease. See, if we take care of this one root, we have the solution to the problem of the universe. Yeah? But it's a difficult root to take care of. But it's very nice. It's only one problem that we have to look into. So we know about the human being that he must orient himself according to the basic laws of nature. And we learned also that his function must be according to the basic laws of nature. And we have two laws or two principles that make up one law. And the one is that nothing can live or function from itself. Nothing has energy or power in itself. Everything must have power from outside. And nothing can live or function for itself. It must give an effect that will somehow benefit the common good. Everything must work as a channel. It has a cause, it has an effect. In entrance and exit, it must take to give. And thereby we have the circuit of life or the circuit of benevolence for the common good. Now, this law in nature has been forgotten for a long time, for a long, long time. So when it comes up, there is sometimes a fight between the understanding that the law in nature is the standard by what we measure with, or the Bible is the standard. Now, can the Bible ever be the standard of measurement? It cannot. Why can the Bible not be the standard of measurement? Yeah?
It depends on our interpretation.
Exactly. Because the person that reads the Bible must interpret what he reads. Yeah. So the information perceived in the spirit will never be objective unless you have something that you can use as a measurement to understand what the Bible means.
It's like the building.
You have a building plan, but you need something to measure with so that you can use that building plan to make a house. Okay? So, of course, without a Bible, we have no plan of salvation or no knowledge of plan of salvation. But without the law, we will not understand the plan of salvation. Okay? Now, when we look at the law as our orientation and read the Bible with that orientation, we will find in the Bible that God made it that we have two stones of law in the Bible. And those two stones goes with each one of these principles. So the first stone says that there is only one source of power. Yeah? Only one place to take. Don't take from other places. This is the only place to take. And over there we have, this is where you give. It's all inclusive. And we will see it here, that the fundamental law is explained in words in the Bible. And Jesus said unto him, what is written in the law? How readest thou? And he answered, saying, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind. This is the first plate, or the first stone. And the second one is, and thy neighbor as thyself. And in the 10 Commandments, we have the law of the Sabbath to remind us of who is creator, because we forgot. We are born without the knowledge that there is someone higher than ourselves. Yeah? And on the other board, or the other stone, we have, do not take from here. Do not take your brother's wife. Do not take his things. And love your parents, honor your parents, because why is that the commandment that shows how to give? Because how do we treat our parents? As a source or only to give? As a source. So we're born without the knowledge that there's someone higher than us. So there's a reminder, I am the creator. I'm the only place to take. Do not take from other creatures, and do not think yourself to be God. And on the other hand, we have a reminder that this is the place to give. You cannot live from your parents. Okay? The most difficult place to only give and never take is our parents. Because we are connected to our mother from conception with our spiritual umbilical cord. Okay? So God's challenge is now that there is a belief in this world. Everyone believes he has a free will. And the perception of this free will is that I can choose to do good and I can choose to do evil. Is that true? No? Yes? Okay, we are a little divided here. I hope maybe at the end of the meeting we will be more in unity. So the idea of a free will is purely imaginary. It's a fantasy. It does not exist. See, everyone is born into this world as a prisoner. And the only thing he can ever do from his conception is the will of another person. He can never, ever work independently. He must always take from somewhere and give somewhere. Yeah? There is no free will. Now, it can be a little bit difficult to see the difference between what is good, what is love, and what is evil. And I don't know if you guys are into fruit trees. I'm not so much myself, but I found two very pretty trees that looks a little bit alike. The only difference is that one of them gives fruit that you can eat, and the other one gives fruit that you cannot eat. I think it's called hawthorns, the other one, yeah? And so you don't really see the difference between these two trees when you look at them from a distance, unless you have very good garden eyes, maybe. But there are things that can help you realize the difference between these trees. Now, one of them is, of course, to wait for the fruit to come out, to see what kind of fruit is on the tree. Another idea I had was to just take my hand around one of them and squeeze it hard. Now, if you squeeze the branch with the fruit tree flowers on, nothing happens. But if you squeeze the branch of the hawthorns, what happens? You won't do it again. You won't do it again. Okay, so God has this very difficult problem. He has to show this world that believes they have free will. He has to show them that they do not. He has to show them that they are slaves. So the only way to show them that is to squeeze them a little bit. Okay? And when we are squeezed a little bit, and really we are the ones that squeeze ourselves in the situation, but our effects will come out. It will show as disease and uncontrolled behavior. And this shows our captivity. It shows that we have no free will. It shows that we are prisoners and that we are dependent on the wrong source. So we have depression and we have fever and anger, eczema, cavities, fear, despair. And Jesus, he came here and he wanted to show people that they are poor, blind, brokenhearted, captives, and bruised. Now, he comes into the synagogue and they give him the book of Isaiah and he reads to them. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He said, he sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach the deliverance to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord." Now, if you are poor, maybe we don't start with that because I know an argument over here that will come up. If we are blind, can we choose to see? You could, even then, I'm amazed. If you are captive, can you choose to be free? No, you cannot. If you are bruised, can you choose to be healed? If you are brokenhearted, can you choose to be? No, there is no choice for this. So, can we choose not to sin? Can we choose the good? You see, everyone is created like a channel. And when we work as we should from creation, we have God as our source, the only dependency. How much evil can you do if you're connected to God?
Not according to the teachings.
According to
No,
the
that's not
teachings.
right.
So let me ask you, just to puzzle you a little bit, if you can do no evil when you are dependent on God, then how did Adam fall into sin?
He believed he's independent.
Yeah. So we're going to have a look at that. If you are connected to God, it is impossible to do evil. If you only eat your love from God, nothing evil can come out. If you, on the other hand, believe yourself to be independent of God, then you will not take from him. And then you will start eating from other people around you, maybe even your pets. I had a young lady come to my practice, or to the practice, just a few days before we had to leave, and she had a pain in a tooth, and she visited me some months ago, and we tried to correct the filling to see if that may be the problem, because it was when she got something cold on the tooth. And this time she came again, and she was like, I don't know, maybe it's not good yet. And well, actually, maybe it was the tooth behind it. I'm not completely sure. And then we talked a little bit, and I also, of course, I looked at the tooth and nothing was wrong. There was nothing to see in the x-ray, nothing to see in the mouth. And then I just asked her if she was a little bit stressed. And surely immediately the tears started running down her face. And she told me that she just lost 4 pits. You see, if we don't have people around us to connect to, we must have love from somewhere. We are so hungry for love that we will connect to anything that appears to love us. Yeah. And so we talked a little bit about it, and she told me also that recently she had been diagnosed, or some time ago she had been investigated. They had investigated if she had a more serious disease, and she had gotten so nervous that she had lost her nails. Yeah. So it's amazing how the body just immediately shows you exactly what goes on in the heart of man. Now, if you are dependent on something else, someone else than God, how much good can you do? Nothing. You cannot choose the good. Now, the problem is, of course, we just take this one first. When you are disconnected to the source of love and life, how much power will you have to do the good? And it gives itself, at least we say that in Danish, there is no power. Yeah? The electricity created will not be the kind that gives life and energy. It will be the kind that makes us tired and anxious and diseased. Yeah? And we see that Jesus shows us also in the New Testament. He says, do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? And it's not possible. You would never, ever go to a tree with thorns and expect to find grapes. It's not possible. And if you see thistles, will you ever try and eat them? We won't do that. So in nature, we understand the principle. And sometimes we think to ourselves, we understand the scripture also. But without a measurement, without the law, we do not understand that nothing good can come from an evil nature. And nothing evil can come from a good nature. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, and neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. There is no choice to change your fruit. Now, if we cannot change the fruits, can we then change our dependency? Can we choose to stop being dependent on the other one and now be dependent on God? Yes, is that to take care of the root problem?
Well, eventually there's good fruit if it's grafted.
At least in nature. Yeah. So nature has its limits when it comes to parables. You see, from conception, a child is born into spiritual dependency with his mother, or before his birth, and it continues after birth. That means every time your baby breathes, he breathes, eats, and sleeps for himself in selfishness. Yeah? Every time he cries to get what he wants. Every time he laughs or smiles, he smiles and laughs for himself, because when he does that, he makes other people smile and he lives from that harmony. He does everything for himself. Now the baby may become a little bit older. Right now, I think most of us can understand he does not have a choice. But even when we grow up, we cannot change the dependency. But let's just see about the fruits again. This is my life from conception, and I have only one root in me. Unfortunately, it gives me a whole tree. Maybe my tree is a little bit smaller than some of those that have lived a little bit longer. But there are plenty of both wrong thoughts and actions in my life. Incountable, yeah? Now, what we usually do is we want to change the fruits, and that means that everything above ground, we start cutting down with scissors. What happens when you prune a tree? It comes back stronger with more leaves, more branches. If you cut it at the root or just above the ground, what happens? New things comes up. Maybe it takes a little bit of time, but they will come. Yeah. The only way to take care of it is in this kind of end. It has to be either on this side or it has to be there. Yeah. So we know where the problem is to be solved. The question is just, is it solvable? Can we change that dependency? When you are independent of God, if you believe yourself to be the water well, the source of love, could you ever search for another source if you are the source yourself? You cannot change the dependency, because subconsciously you believe yourself to be the highest being on this planet. So you may consciously want to change that dependency, but by law it is impossible. The only thing you can do is giving, but you give to receive, because you must be dependent on something, but you cannot be dependent on anything but your surroundings. Now I give you a little story showing that we have no choice for dependency. We were in the US in the fall, and very exciting. It was my first time in the US, and we met a good friend there from New Zealand. We are going to visit after we leave here on Tuesday, Margaret, and she brought, or we all had, our adapters for the charging of our phones and so on. And Margaret was fighting a little bit with the outlet because it's turned out she brought the wrong adapter. And she, like me, is a little bit of a persistent lady, so she kept trying to put it in there. And in the end, she was like, I really think this is the wrong adapter. And what Adam did in the beginning, when he fell into sin, was that he took out the plug from God and he forced it into the wall. And this is the plug that I inherit. That plug is completely broken. It can never again be inserted into God. It is impossible. Now, Adam was made to only fit into this plug. There was no alternative for him. He had no choice to plug into someone else. So he did the impossible. And this is the mystery of sin, because by law, you cannot change your dependency. And by law, the effect must always correlate to the cause. Now the question is then, why did God put the tree in the garden? Because this is a constant discussion. Well, if we have no choice for good and evil, then why did God say, here's a tree that is evil, here's a tree that is good, now you choose what you want? Was that why God put the tree in the garden? You see, when Adam came or when Adam was created, evil already existed in this universe. So what God did was he explained the law to Adam and Eve, and then he put a tree there to limit the influence of the devil. So the tree was there to protect Adam and to take all means that he would not fall into sin. If you eat, you will die. That is not a suggestion of, you know what, you can eat from here and you can eat from here, go ahead. This was not an offer, just go and eat. This was a warning. There is no alternative of being plugged into me. Living apart from me is an impossibility, and you will die. Because apart from a power of life and love, you cannot fulfill your purpose and you cannot be healthy. Now, Adam was to have died on the spot because he disconnected from the source of life. But God kept him supernaturally alive because God had a plan. But to change your dependency is completely impossible. And it never was a choice from the beginning. Now, Romans 7, we read, "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing, for to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I do, or which I would not, that I do. Now, if I do that, I would not. It is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. I find then a law that when I would do the good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man." Do we like the Bible? Do we like the law? Do we like God? Yeah, sure. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? Does that sound like free will? To me, it sounds like slavery. God speaks to his people in Jeremiah, and he says, "Can the Ethiopian change his skin or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil." Does that sound like a free choice? I don't think so. Paul to the Hebrews, "For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for judgments and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries." If you sin willfully, there is no sacrifice that can help you. So do we sin on purpose?
Many people do.
No, people do. But we do sin out of deception. Now, if Adam chose to sin before the fall or during the fall because he wanted the evil, then why on earth would God try and save him? He should have let him go where he wanted, because Adam surely wanted to do evil. Was it Adam's wish to do evil? No, he just wanted to save his wife. Would you have liked to save your wife? Or your sister? Or your mom? Now, Adam was not dependent on Eve like we're dependent on the people that we're around. But just try and put yourself in the place of Adam. Now, surely the situation was different. Adam's sin was different than ours. And we read it very clearly in Romans 5. It says that the transgression of Adam was different than that of everyone who came after him, because Adam was completely dependent on God. So there was no choice for him to do evil. But he had to deceive himself without an explanation for this. There's no explanation for it, but he has to be deceived to do the evil because he loved God. He loved the law of God. He was introduced to the law of God more consciously because God had to teach him about it after the fall of Lucifer. But from his creation, he worked by that law, and he didn't even think about that God could be evil or that it could be nice to do something else than what God wanted, because he was created to just take what God gives and pass it on to the world that he was made to supply. So there was nothing in Adam who wanted to do the evil, but he did evil because he thought it was good. See, this is why it's called deception. Because what we think is good or what we are attracted to, it looks good in our eyes, but underneath it is really evil. That is what deception is. I believe I can see, but truly I am blind. I think I do the good, but truly it is in selfishness. It's deception because you do not see it. It's deception because you are completely blind to it. You think you're on the right track, and it turns out you're on the way to fall into a very deep pit. So we got to ask ourselves some questions. Can God do the evil when his character is love? Now, if God cannot do the evil, does he then have a free will?
No.
I like that. It makes us think. Yes, I will turn everything upside down for you. Now, everyone and everything is created to function according to the law. God is outside that law, of course. But if God created Lucifer or any other creature with the built-in capacity to do evil, then evil must have existed before Lucifer.
I don't believe that.
That's up to you. But there's no other way. You see, if God was the one that came up with the idea, oh, I give Lucifer the choice to do the good or to do the evil, then who came up with the idea of evil? Because it was not in Lucifer then. It was before Lucifer even had the thought of evil.
The Bible tells us it's a mystery. It's iniquity.
Exactly. It is a mystery because there was no choice for it. Then who would have been the origin of evil? God would have been the origin of evil. So Lucifer had to deceive himself into sin, and then he deceived Adam, or he brought the means to deceive Eve, and Eve deceived herself, believing Lucifer to present to her the good, and Adam deceived himself by thinking, oh, maybe I can save her on my own. But then, can we not at least make decisions? The spirit of man was created for self-government. So he has to make decisions. No one else can make the decisions for him. He cannot be controlled from the outside, but he must control himself from the inside. However, well, he is therefore responsible for his decisions and actions. No one can be responsible but you, yeah? However, that he does not have a choice about his decisions and actions means that he is bound to think and act according to the identity and the nature he was born with. So you can make decisions of going to Jamaica or staying here, but that decision must be connected to your identity. That means if your identity is correct, you will do it for God and in selflessness. And if you are connected or have the identity believing that you are independent, you will do it in selfishness. And you cannot choose which one to do. You must act according to your nature. There's no other way. So we have, of course, evaluation of information. And we'll see how this looks like when we have the identity in the beginning of our spirit. Now, this is the spirit of man, and outside of us, we have the information and we have the source of information. And this down here is our brain cortexes. And this is the entrance of the spirit of man. And this is the exit. This is where the decisions are made. Now, we know that the spirit is dependent on means to fulfill his needs for function, which is love, harmony, righteousness, liberty, and so on. We also know that he is self-governed and no one can evaluate, accept, or reject information for him but himself. That means he has a yes and he has a no for every information he encounters. Either he accepts it or he rejects it. And we know that that works by gain and loss. Yeah? So when he has his yes, it creates the electricity and it then gives the decisions, and he has then emotions and feelings, actions, and bodily reactions. Now, how we do that is that we bind to a source of information that is outside of ourselves, and we bind ourselves in trust. And the intake of information is then believing that source of information, and that we call faith. So to accept the information that is outside of us, the information must be perceived to be true. Adam could have never believed the snake if he did not think the snake was right. The information we accept must meet the needs of the spirit. So, whenever I believe something, it must be that I perceive that this information will help me fulfill the needs I have. And also, it must be perceived to be necessary and needed to the fulfillment of the purpose. I have a nice example. Where I work, my boss would like for me to examine a lot of information about how a journal system works and all these other many things you can investigate. You can investigate forever. But I am a very simple-minded person, and my capacity is not great. So I always only investigate for information when I am in need of it. You see, then there's just the only difference between me and my boss is that she believes she needs more information. I believe I need very little information. So she searches for more because she believes she needs more. And I search for only a little bit because I think I only need a little bit. But if I don't think I need the information, I will not look for it. Now, this is life and evaluation according to the nature that we inherited from Adam. In us, we have a scale, and this is the scale by which we analyze the information that is outside of us. And to measure the information to decide whether it's right or wrong, we use a standard. Now, if I believe myself to be God, I am that standard. I will read the Bible with my subjective understanding and believe it to be true. I will bind myself in trust to the source of information, which is no longer God, because I believe I am God. So I will trust in humans and in the end, the devil. And I will live from the information or from the source of information in the way that I believe what they say, and this is how I take in information. You know, we live on information, which is the thing that guides our electricity in our body. So the information I take and I live from that creates the electricity in my body will be that of other people. And when they do not do according to my needs, I will have uncontrolled behavior and disease. And of course, we will have wrong beliefs as long as we have ourselves as the standard. There is no way around that. Now, if we are according to the truth, I will believe that I am a child of God. I will use the law as my standard. Then I will bind in trust to the source of information, which is God. And I will live from that source of information by taking in the information that he provides in faith. But I will have the law as the standard, and I will have the Bible as the information that must be interpreted by law. Of course, there will be a process where I have not understood the law perfectly yet, but it is at least inside of my rækkevidde. Rækkevidde.
Like you mentioned the law, like, what law are you talking about? What law of God or something like that, I guess?
The law in nature is the law of God, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not talking about the law.
I'm not talking about the law of the government. No, that's another story. Yeah. As long as I have the law as my standard, I am secure from any loss. I am secure from believing any lie. But it requires, of course, that I am fully in the truth, knowing only that I am a child of God and that I am completely dependent. This will give me a yes for the gain, which is to give, and a no for the loss, which is to keep anything for myself. And then I will have the truth, I will have loving actions, and I will have perfect health. Now, the law of inheritance shows us what happened at the fall, or it shows us where I am after the fall. God made Adam, perfectly dependent on him, understanding that he was a child of God. And then from Adam, he took Eve, and she understood that she was a child of God. And so everyone must live the life of Adam, because even Eve is taken out of the life of Adam. So the life of Adam goes on, but he separates himself from God, changes his identity into independence of God. And so his life is now dead. And since Adam and Eve are the only ancestors anyone can have, everyone coming after Adam and Eve must have this life of Adam, which is dead. Unable to connect to God as their source of life. That means they take from the people around them, and in the end, they take from the devil. You see what happened to Adam when he trusted Eve? He became dependent on the devil. The devil was the one with the deception in the beginning, and Adam believed Eve, who believed the serpent. So everyone that comes after must have the wrong identity and not having any orientation. And the issue is that the problem of man can only be solved from inside. This is a heart, it's filled with stone, and a lie that I am God, which means that I have closed the door from inside. I have blocked it, or it was blocked from conception. So because the spirit of man is self-governed and only can act from inside, God has no access to him because God cannot possess him. So no one can open the door to God except man himself, and man himself cannot open the door because his heart is completely severed from God. And this means that there is no solution for the life of Adam. By no choice, every human being is brought into this world, since no one can choose to not be born. Yeah? So we don't have a choice for being born or not. Everyone on this earth inherits the dead life of Adam by no choice. Nothing good can come from this life, only evil, And man is now bound to live and die in slavery by no choice. The life of Adam cannot be saved. It is eternally lost. With this life, no one goes to heaven. And this is the inescapable problem of humanity that God had to find a solution for. An unsolvable problem. And this is where the first lecture for today is ending.